All right, dummies, let's talk about it. Good morning, Uncle Lou here. The Rose Bowl, Alabama and Michigan. Number one, Michigan versus number four, Alabama. Played in the Rose Bowl because, of course, the number one seed gets their choice of playoff destination. The two playoff destinations this year, the Rose Bowl and the Sugar Bowl. Michigan chose the Rose Bowl for a couple of obvious reasons. Number one, Big Ten and the Rose Bowl just kind of goes together. It has for 100 years. Michigan is familiar with playing there. The Rose Bowl is a game that the Big Ten plays in all the time, and Michigan has played in a ton of times. And even though the travel is probably further, right, for Michigan to go to the Rose Bowl than it would be to go to New Orleans and the Sugar Bowl, Alabama is literally right next door to the Sugar Bowl. Alabama being next to or a couple of states away from Louisiana. So you don't want to. Michigan doesn't want to play the game in the Sugar Bowl because it's closer to where Alabama is. So, but anyway, that doesn't really matter. I don't think in these types of games. I mean, once you get down to the playoffs and you're looking at four of the best teams left in all of college football, the location that the game is played almost becomes irrelevant. Outside of next year, of course, when we go to the 12-team playoff and you've got actual home playoff games, that would be an obvious advantage. But as far as who travels to these games, I mean, it comes down to, fan bases. Money is an issue, right? Let's face it, these playoff games are taking place a week after Christmas a lot of times. You have to have a significant amount of disposable income to be able to afford to travel to these types of games. So what will the crowd split be there? I would assume pretty close to 50-50. I mean, Alabama has made a ton of playoffs and national championship games. So, you say, well, their fans have been to a ton of these things. They didn't go last year. So, it's sort of, it's a little new to them. Again, Michigan has been 3 years in a row, right? This is their third straight year making the playoffs. They've yet to win a playoff game. I think the crowd will probably be close to 50-50, I would assume. I mean, the ticket splits between the schools are identical. Like, Michigan will be sent a certain number of tickets. Alabama will be sent that same number of tickets. But then you're looking at secondhand market, StubHub, Ticketmaster, Vivid Seats, all this kind of stuff. And as far as who buys up the tickets, it's anybody's guess, really, but I'm assuming the crowd will be pretty close to 50-50. So I don't think there's any real home field advantage here or anything like that. Maybe Michigan's a little more familiar with the Rose Bowl. Maybe Bama's a little more familiar with just being in the playoffs, whatever. I think it all kind of equals itself out. But let's talk about the game. Michigan is favored right now in the early line. Now, we're still, 25 days away from this game? This game's played on New Year's Day. The playoff games this year are on New Year's Day. So still an early line here, but Michigan opening line at 1.5, which is significant. Because it's only the fifth time Alabama has been an underdog to anybody, anywhere, in any game in the last 15 years. Only the fifth time. The other four times Alabama was an underdog was all to Georgia. And in those four games, of course, Alabama's 3-1. Georgia only beat them. Bama's only beaten. Georgia's only beaten Bama once. But anyway, Georgia. Don't get me started on the Georgia versus Bama deal. I'm fine. I'm going to keep telling myself that. Look, I think this is going to be a great game. A lot of playoff games have been blowouts. You go out and you look over the history of college football and all of the first round playoff games we've had going all the way back to the very first year, 2014 through now. The overwhelming majority of first round playoff games have been blowouts. I don't expect this to be a blowout for a couple of reasons. I think these are two legitimately great teams this year. And both of these teams, neither one of these teams are really considered like offensive juggernauts this year. Now, both teams have good offenses. Both teams have weapons on offenses. But both teams have really good defenses, really good lines of scrimmage. Both teams love to run the ball. And I think that is going to lend itself to a lower scoring game. And by nature, lower scoring games tend to be closer. You can't beat somebody by 40 points if you only score 24, right? So I expect this to be a great game. It's two huge brands. I think the TV ratings will be through the roof. Everybody will be watching this game, even people who right now are still upset over the selection process. And look, the selection process was a complete mess. The playoff committee was kind of stuck in a tough spot. Everybody and their brother has done nothing for the last year but complain about TCU getting into the playoffs last year. So now the playoff committee does the opposite of what they did last year. They put in a better team instead of a more deserving team, and now people are still complaining about that. I would have put Florida State in. I don't know how much more clear I can be. I think Alabama's way better than Florida State. I think there's probably 15 teams that are way better than Florida State right now. I would have voted for Florida State in because, they're undefeated. They had 11 Power 5 wins. They beat 2 SEC teams. But that's over and done with now. If you're a Florida State fan, I know they're going to probably continue to complain about this from now to the end of time. And I would too if I was a Florida State fan. But this is going to be a better game than anything we would have gotten had Florida State got in. And so it's time for the rest of us, I think, to kind of move past that and just start focusing on this game. And I think it's going to be a great game. You got two quarterbacks who, in my opinion, are not great. I think J.J. McCarthy clearly is a better passer of the football than Jalen Mildew. Jalen Mildew, obviously a way better athlete, way better with his legs, running the ball, extending plays, designed QB runs, scrambling QB runs, whatever. Milroe would have an advantage there. Defensively, look, these defenses are elite. I think Michigan probably has a little bit better of a defense overall than Alabama, but it's close. Offensively, it's a tough one. Normally you would look at these two teams and go, well, Alabama's going to have the better wideouts for sure, and they may have the better wideouts, but it's not by a large margin. Alabama's wide receiver room this year and really last year has been a couple of steps below what they're used to having there over the last 10 years or so. Michigan, they haven't really had a wideout that scares anybody, that anybody can really remember. They've got serviceable wideouts. Wilson, is that the guy's name? I might be getting that wrong. He's a good wideout. He's not scaring anybody. I mean, he's not like, every play, let's figure out where this guy is and make sure we're doubling him, that kind of thing. And neither quarterback is, these aren't Heisman level QBs or anything like that. This is going to be a low scoring defensive game. Jim Harbaugh versus Nick Saban, I would definitely give the edge to Saban there. I mean, he's the greatest coach of all time. Overall coaching staffs, I think is probably pretty even. I'm not all that impressed with Alabama's coaching staff underneath Nick Saban, particularly the coordinators. I'm not a Tommy Rees fan. I think it's just a matter of time before Alabama fans become not a Tommy Rees fan as well. And as far as their defensive coordinator goes, he's kind of a dinosaur, But anyway, it is what it is. This is a very, very close, equally matched game, I think. One of the interesting aspects of this game that we don't get in a lot of games, or that you don't really have to talk about in a lot of games, and I guess you don't have to talk about it with this one, but it's interesting to me. Alabama has been one of the most hated teams in college football over the last 15 years. Why? Because they win all the time. That's what happens when you win all the time, right? People hate the Yankees because they win all the time. People hated the Cowboys back when they used to win all the time. Whoever's the best program of any given sort of era becomes the most hated team by everyone else. It's just kind of a given in sports. But Michigan, with the cheating scandal that occurred earlier this season, or that was uncovered earlier this season, that had been going on for a couple of years, Michigan kind of became the team to hate during the season. A lot of people wanted to see Michigan lose. A lot of people wanted to see Michigan banned from the postseason, banned from the Big Ten title game, whatever. Didn't happen. Harbaugh was suspended the last 3 games of the regular season. And without getting into the entire cheating scandal, I think that, 99% of people on planet Earth can just calmly agree, yeah, Michigan was cheating and they got caught. There's a few Michigan fans still stuck in the maze haze who try to use some kind of word salad to convince you that no, it wasn't technically cheating or whatever. It was cheating and they got caught. And as far as what's going to happen about that, I don't know. The NCAA will wrap up their investigation sometime between now and 4 years from now. It takes them forever to do anything. Maybe to go back and vacate wins. Maybe they strip Scott. Whatever. Who knows? It doesn't matter for the purposes of this game. But because of that, Michigan became probably the most hated team in college football during this regular season. So who does the college football public pull for in this game? Not root for, because if you have a favorite team, you're not gonna necessarily root for one team or the other in this game. But like, who would you rather see win? Not necessarily who you think will win, but who would you rather see win? Would you rather see Alabama again advance to another national title game and potentially win yet another national title to add to their long list? Or would you rather the cheaters, quote unquote, win and advance to the national title game and have an opportunity to play and win a national title? I'm going to be curious to see, sort of through the comment section in my videos and the comments on the live streams and the phone calls that I get on the call-in show and all that over the next month. I'll be curious to see kind of which direction fans are leaning in that game in terms of who they'd rather see win, based on the fact that you've got Alabama, the most hated team in college football over the last 15 years probably, versus Michigan, the most hated team in college football over the course of this season as a result of that cheating scandal. That's an interesting aspect of the game to me. Not an aspect of the game that I think will have any actual effect or impact on the game. It's just a sociological curiosity that I have, I guess, about how people may view this, game. Is there a point total here that you feel like if either team gets to that number, they could win? Do you think anybody's scoring over 30 points in this game? I don't think. Now, it's still early. I'm going to make probably, I don't know, 2 or 3 videos about each of the playoff games over the next couple of weeks leading up to the games themselves. And I'm going to try not to make any declarative statements about the game this far out. I honestly don't know who I think is going to win this game yet. Part of the reason is it's still 30 days away. Part of the reason is I think it's going to be a very close game. So I'm going to try not to make any declarative statements one way or the other, but doesn't it kind of feel like maybe if one of these two teams can get to 30 points, you really like their chances of winning? I guess what I'm saying is we've seen playoff games in the past, 43-40, stuff like that. It's hard for me to imagine a scenario where this game plays out and your final score ends up being one team, 42, another team 38. Like this seems like a 27-24, 28-20, 28-27, 31-24. It doesn't it? It kind of seems that way to me. Neither one of these teams are really in a huge hurry to run plays offensively. You got some teams that run fast-paced, hurry up the entire game. Now, these two teams can go into a hurry-up mode when they need to. Maybe it's 2nd and 8, you gain 7 yards, you run back to the line of scrimmage real quick to try to snap the ball in a hurry for a quarterback sneak to just pick up a quick 1 yard or something like that. But in terms of just overall tempo, neither one of these teams are really running at a lightning pace. Plus, they've got great defenses, and both teams like to run the ball. All of those things tend to slow the game down and limit scoring a little bit and plays into the hands of each team's strength. So I guess which one of those teams does those things better? You've got the obvious things like turnovers, special teams plays, whether it's a punt return for a touchdown or a blocked field goal, something like that. You got those kinds of things, which you could talk about being important in any game, but obviously the bigger the game, the bigger the magnitude of those mistakes could be. But this feels like a game in the 20s, and if maybe one team figures it out offensively and gets to, 30, 33, 34, 35 points, it probably feels like that team would win the game. It feels like that to me anyway. But I'm excited for this one. 2 huge brands. It's going to be a great game. NFL lines of scrimmage in this game. Kind of an old school throwback type of game. There's no Jaden Daniels on the field in this game, right? There's no Bryce Young on the field in this game. It sort of feels like one of these old school Keith Jackson hog molly type of games. You got to be an old fuck like Uncle Lou maybe to even understand that reference there. But I'm excited for this one. I think it's going to be a good game. Let me know your initial thoughts on this game down below. You'd made up your mind already who you think's going to win? If you have, let me know. If you're leaning one way or the other, some keys to the game, things you think might be important to the outcome of this game, let me know in the comments down below. Like I said, I'm very curious over the next, how many days we got, 25, 26 days, whatever it is until this game is played. Very curious how people are viewing this game. Anyway, that's my initial thoughts on the Rose Bowl, a playoff game this year, Alabama and Michigan. Appreciate you watching. Hit the thumbs up. I'll talk to you again soon. Have a good morning.